Divorce ought to be thought about as a trigger for a buy-sell. Divorce? Really? Yeah, no, divorce really should be thought about. If people get divorced, what is it that they fight about? Well, they fight about everything sometimes, unfortunately. But one of the main things that they might fight about is stuff. They might fight about stuff and what it's worth, how to divide it up, and how to turn it into money. And if a divorcing business owner is in that kind of fight with a prospective ex-spouse, those issues with regard to the closely held business interest are certainly important issues. They can create tension, valuation, turning it into money, control, can create tension not only between the divorcing spouses, but if you've got another owner of the company who is not going through a divorce, it can create tension over how the business is going to be managed. And if a buyout needs to happen, or if there's an argument over what the business interest is worth, there may be some tension there into trying to turn the business interest of the divorcing spouses into money. And so that possibility can be anticipated and dealt with properly in a buy-sell agreement. There are lots of ways to do it. I'm not going to go through that because we have limited time. But it is certainly possible to fix the value and fix the method for a business buyout in the event of a divorce trigger if it's anticipated properly in a buy-sell agreement. Personal bankruptcy, like divorce, is something that maybe ought to be thought about. If one of the partners of the business has to declare personal bankruptcy, the business interest is basically turned over to the bankruptcy trustee for evaluation and potential liquidation. And so the possibility of bankruptcy ought to be thought about in a buy-sell agreement, and some words perhaps need to be put in there for the event of a buyout in the event one of the owners goes bankrupt. The possibility of the business owners getting upside down with each other perhaps needs to be included in a buy-sell agreement. Tell a quick story from my law firm days. I had a 4-owner company where the owners called me up and said, Linus, we'd like to come see you. We've got some questions for you. So I invited them in for an appointment. 3 of the owners showed up. And I'll give you a little insight into a lawyer's world. If you've got a 4-owner company and 3 of the owners show up to visit with you, odds are it's not good. It's not an easy conversation. And so the 3 owners looked at me and said, Linus, our business is just at the cusp of doing really, really well. And we're excited about it. The problem is that we started the business with 4 owners, and this 4th guy just isn't carrying his weight. He isn't doing what we wanted him to do. And we want to get him out of the business before the business really takes off. How do we do that? So I'm a lawyer at this, and I'm still a lawyer, but I'm a practicing lawyer at this point. What do I ask them for? I ask them for a copy of their operating agreement. This happened to be an LLC, and LLCs are supposed to have operating agreements. And I was looking in the operating agreement, if I reviewed it, for what the rules would be for getting the 4th owner out of the company. Well, of course, they didn't have an operating agreement. They didn't have a set of rules for getting the 4th owner out of the company. And that was a problem. The good news is they were able to negotiate something. But the potential bad news would have been if they weren't able to negotiate and didn't have a set of rules, they might have been stuck having the 4th owner in there unless they were willing to go through litigation. So that kind of thing needs to be thought about in the context of buy-sell planning. Think about planned termination of the business relationship. We talked about retirement earlier as a potential trigger for buy-sell planning. The possibility of a third-party buyer offering money ought to be thought about in the buy-sell agreement. This is particularly true if you've got an older owner of the company partnered up with a younger owner. The older owner is ready to cash out and is really looking to cash out with a third-party buyer where the younger owner really wants to build the business into something else. There may be a mismatch in timing, and so having some rules in the buy-sell agreement for how to deal with that is really important. So why is it important to talk about these other triggers? Well, I think if an agent focuses only on the death trigger in a buy-sell agreement, she or he is likely to sell the cheapest way to buy death benefit. And from the client's perspective, that's term insurance. So if you talk about lifetime triggers, how does that help? Well, the only way to plan to fund a lifetime buyout for most businesses is with an installment purchase using the business's cash flow over time. So for example, if you have a two-owner company where one owner is 55 and the other is 30, the younger owner will likely plan to buy out the older one at retirement, and the buyout method is likely going to be an installment note. So if the young member has access to cash to make a significant down payment, it takes some pressure off of the business's future cash flow. So that's likely to help both the younger owner because there's enough cash flow to make everything work, and it's also likely to help the older owner who's being bought out because it means that since the business is more likely to be successful, the cash flow is likely to continue. So permanent life insurance, if it's used to fund the death time buyout, it can also be used, its cash value can be used to help make a down payment for a lifetime trigger. So by you having a broader discussion with your clients and prospects about these other lifetime triggers, it helps promote permanent life insurance sales while at the same time providing better service to your client because you're talking about more things that are of interest to the clients. Obviously, an agent can help the parties structure and fund life insurance so that enough cash value is available at exactly the right time. So what other kinds of things should be included in buy-sell agreements? Well, business valuation is an important thing to include. I think agents often get stuck on valuation of a closely held business with their business owner clients. In my personal experience, clients usually have a pretty good idea of what their business is worth, even if they don't want to fess up to the agent. So if you're talking to a client and the client's reluctant to talk about what the business value might be, you can ask questions. You know, some effective ones that I've heard in my experience. You know, if I came in with a checkbook today and you were in a selling mood, Mr. Business Owner, how big would the check need to be? Another question might be, how much would your family expect to get if you died tomorrow and they had to sell the business? I think those are open-ended and allow the business owner to talk. If the business owner really refuses to kind of reveal that, I think it's fair for the planning professional to suggest a valuation method and put it on the table and see if there are any takers. One thing might be 1 times gross revenues, annual gross revenues. Another valuation might be 10 times excess cash flows from the business. You can pick a valuation method. I think it's important to toss something on the table and let the business owners react to that. And I'm going to talk in just a second about what might be best. So if you're helping a client with putting together a buy-sell agreement with potentially visiting the lawyer, you want to make sure that these special concerns are addressed in the agreement. You want to make sure that the client and the lawyer knows about funding, that if the client's talking to a key employee, for example, that the client carefully considers whether a compensation agreement or an ownership arrangement is the right approach and the implications of both. You want to make sure that the actual owners of the company are the parties to the buy-sell agreement. If the client has multiple businesses, you want to make sure all of them are thought about in the context of buy-sell planning. You want to make sure that the buy-sell agreement is consistent with bylaws or operating agreement, and you want to make sure that the plans are properly implemented with the client's overall estate plans. So let me talk really quickly, and I know we're nearing the end here. Let me talk really quickly about a couple of a couple of case studies. The first one has to do with somebody who sent me a buy-sell agreement. So let's say you have a prospect who says she has an existing buy-sell agreement. You say, great. Your response is, I'd be glad to have it reviewed for you at no charge to make sure it's going to do what you think it's going to do. And let's say you get a buy-sell agreement like this one. So what I'd invite you to do is to take 20 seconds, look it over, and see if you can spot the problem with this buy-sell agreement. Go.